Mercedes just won the Miami Grand Prix. And now the FIA believes they may have found something illegal. Not a visible part. Not a mistake on track. A hidden system that only shows up when it matters most. And here's why this is massive. This comes right after a race where one perfectly timed move, on lap 27, completely changed the outcome, and nobody could explain how it was that effective. So now the question isn't just how Mercedes won. It's whether they should have won at all. Because if this trick is real, this isn't just a victory. It's the beginning of one of the biggest controversies of the season. At first, it didn't look like a scandal. It looked like dominance. A clean win, perfectly executed, exactly what you expect from a team leading the championship. Antonelli crosses the line first, extends his advantage, and once again proves that Mercedes is the team to beat right now. On paper, everything makes sense. But then you start to look deeper. Because Miami wasn't just another race. It was a race where every major team pushed hard. Ferrari arrived with a massive upgrade package. McLaren brought significant improvements and showed real pace. Red Bull continued trying to close the gap. And Mercedes? They brought almost nothing. No major visible changes. No big upgrade package. And yet, they still won. That's where the first real question appears. Not publicly. Not officially. But inside the paddock, very real. How? How does a team improve, without showing where that improvement comes from? Because in Formula 1, performance usually leaves a trace. New parts. New designs. Clear evolution. But here, the speed was there, without the evidence. And that's where things start to feel different. Now add the most important moment of the race. Lap 27. The undercut. Mercedes calls Antonelli into the pits. Fresh tires. Clear track. And then, one lap that changes everything. His outlap. Not just fast. Decisive. So effective that when Norris reacts just one lap later, it's already too late. That's not just strategy. That's precision at a level that forces people to ask questions. Because when something works that perfectly, other teams don't just accept it. They analyze it. They break it down. They compare data. And sometimes, they start to doubt it. That's exactly what happened after Miami. Because the gain in that phase of the race didn't fully match what others were seeing from their own cars. Not enough to prove anything, but enough to raise suspicion. And in Formula 1, suspicion is where every investigation begins. And this is where the story stops being about performance and starts becoming about legality. Because once suspicion reaches this level in Formula 1, the FIA doesn't ask simple questions. They ask precise ones. Why did the car gain that much time on that specific lap? Why did the performance spike exactly when the undercut happened? Why did the car remain stable even when the driver reported problems? Those are not random questions. They are targeted. Because the FIA isn't looking for something obvious. They're looking for something hidden. Something that operates in the background. Something that only activates under certain conditions. And that's where the idea of an illegal trick becomes dangerous. Because in modern Formula 1, the biggest advantages are no longer visible. They're coded. They're embedded. They live inside how the car manages energy, traction, and response. And that's exactly what the FIA begins to analyze. Telemetry. Deployment patterns. Behavior across different phases of the race. Corner exits. Straight line speed. Everything. They compare it, lap by lap, against expectations. Against simulations. Against other teams. And when something doesn't match, that's where the investigation deepens. Now connect that with what we already know from Miami. Antonelli's race wasn't smooth. He had issues. Gearbox concerns. Throttle inconsistencies. Problems that should have reduced performance immediately. But somehow, the car still delivered when it mattered most. That contradiction is the key. Because a car that has problems shouldn't behave perfectly. Unless something is compensating. And that's exactly the kind of anomaly the FIA looks for. Not proof. Not yet. But a pattern. Something that doesn't fully make sense. Now add another layer. Mercedes didn't show where their pace came from. No major upgrades. No visible changes. And yet, they execute the most decisive move of the race with absolute precision. That combination, unexplained performance, and perfect execution, creates the worst possible scenario for any team. Attention. Because once the FIA starts focusing on you, everything changes. Every system gets checked. Every behavior gets analyzed. Every gain gets questioned. And here's the most important part. They don't need to find something big. They just need to find something slightly outside the rules. Because in this sport, slightly is enough. We've already seen it. Margins so small they're almost invisible, deciding entire results. Now imagine that level of precision applied to the race winner. That's the situation Mercedes is now facing. And this is where the tension becomes real. Because right now, nothing is confirmed. But nothing is dismissed either. Everything is under review. And in Formula One, that's the most dangerous position you can be in. Because until the FIA reaches a conclusion, every lap of that race, every second of that performance, becomes a question mark. And the longer that question stays open, the bigger it gets. And now, this is where the situation explodes beyond just Mercedes. Because once the FIA starts digging this deep, it never stays contained. It spreads across the entire grid. Every team begins asking the same question. What exactly did Mercedes find that we didn't? And more importantly, is it legal? Because in Formula One, when one team suddenly gains an advantage without a clear explanation, the others don't stay quiet. They react. They study. They challenge. And that's exactly what is happening right now. Behind the scenes, rival teams are already pushing, requesting technical clarifications, questioning specific systems, forcing the FIA to look even deeper into areas that normally wouldn't be examined this closely. That's how these situations escalate. Not through one discovery, but through pressure, layer by layer, until the FIA has no choice but to go all the way. Now think about what that means for Mercedes. They're not just being checked. They're being watched. Every session, every data point, every behavior of the car. And that changes everything. Because when you're under that level of scrutiny, you can't operate the same way. You can't take the same risks. You can't push the boundaries as freely. And in Formula One, that's where performance lives. At the edge. So now Mercedes faces a different kind of race. Not against McLaren. Not against Ferrari. Not against Red Bull. Against the rules themselves. Because even if they are fully legal, they now have to prove it. Continuously. Under pressure. With everyone watching. And that alone can slow a team down. Now connect this with what's coming next. More races. More upgrades from rival teams. McLaren already showing they can fight for wins. Ferrari preparing major improvements. Red Bull still searching for answers, but getting closer. And all of them waiting. Waiting for one thing. The FIA's decision. Because if that decision goes against Mercedes, everything resets. The championship gap disappears. Momentum is gone. Confidence breaks. And the team that looked untouchable suddenly becomes vulnerable. But if the FIA finds nothing, if Mercedes passes every check, then something even more powerful happens. Their dominance becomes undeniable. Because they didn't just win. They survived the highest level of scrutiny possible. And that's when a team becomes almost impossible to beat. So now, everything is balanced on one outcome. One conclusion. One final answer. Because this isn't just about a race anymore. It's about control of the entire season. And right now, Mercedes has everything. But they're also the team with the most to lose. Because in Formula One, the closer you are to perfection, the smaller the margin for error becomes. And sometimes, all it takes is one detail. And this is where everything finally connects, because this was never just about one undercut, or one race, or even one potential trick. It's about a pattern. A pattern that Miami exposed in a way no one can ignore anymore. Look at it closely. Mercedes wins again. 4 races, 4 victories. A championship lead that's already starting to look untouchable. But not with overwhelming speed. Not with a car that is clearly faster in every corner. No. They win differently. They win in the details. In the exact moment where the race flips. In the lap that changes everything. In the phase where performance suddenly appears, and no one else can match it. That's the real story. Because dominance like this doesn't just create success. It creates pressure. Pressure from rivals. Pressure from the FIA. Pressure from the system itself. And now, all of that pressure is focused on one question. Where's that extra performance coming from? Because in Formula One, there is always an answer. Always. Nothing happens without a reason. Every gain has a source. Every advantage has a limit. And if that limit is crossed, even slightly, everything changes. That's why this investigation matters so much. Because it's not about proving something obvious. It's about understanding something hidden. Something that sits right on the edge between genius and illegality. And here's the reality. Mercedes might be completely clean. Everything could be perfectly within the rules. Every system legal. Every gain justified. But even in that scenario, nothing goes back to normal. Because now, the entire paddock is watching. Every race from this point forward is different. Every performance is questioned. Every advantage is analyzed. That level of scrutiny never disappears. And if they are clean, then their dominance becomes something even more powerful. Unquestionable. Because they didn't just win. They survived the highest level of investigation and stayed on top. That's how dynasties are built. But if they're not, if the FIA finds even the smallest irregularity, then everything collapses. Instantly. Because we're not talking about a small penalty. We're talking about race wins, points, momentum, a championship lead that could disappear overnight. And in Formula 1, losing momentum is everything. Now think about the timing. The season is still young. The gap is growing. Rival teams are preparing upgrades. McLaren is already close. Ferrari is bringing major changes. Red Bull is still searching, but not far behind. And all of them are waiting for that one moment. That one decision from the FIA. Because that decision doesn't just close an investigation. It defines the season. So in the end, the real question isn't whether Mercedes used something illegal. It's whether their dominance can survive what comes next. Because Miami didn't just give us a winner. It created a line. A line between brilliance and something else. And right now, no one knows on which side Mercedes truly stands. But when the answer comes, it won't just explain the past. It will decide the future. And this is the moment where everything reaches its peak, because now, it's no longer about what Mercedes did. It's about what happens when the FIA finally speaks. Because up to this point, everything has been tension, questions, pressure building behind the scenes. But Formula 1 doesn't stay in uncertainty forever. At some point, a decision comes. And that decision changes everything. Think about both possibilities. Because this is where the entire season splits in two. If the FIA clears Mercedes, if every system, every detail, every behavior is confirmed legal, then what we're watching isn't just a fast team. It's something much bigger. A team that found performance others couldn't. A team that executed under pressure, under investigation, and still came out on top. That's when dominance becomes psychological. Because every rival now knows something uncomfortable. They're not just behind. They don't even fully understand why they're behind. And that's the moment when championships start slipping away. Not on track. In the mind. But if the FIA doesn't clear them, if even the smallest irregularity is confirmed, then everything flips. Instantly. Because now we're not talking about performance anymore. We're talking about legitimacy. Every win gets questioned. Every advantage gets re-examined. And the team that looked unbeatable becomes exposed. Because in Formula 1, once a line is crossed, there's no going back. Penalties come. Points disappear. Momentum breaks. And most importantly, confidence is gone. Not just inside the team. Across the entire paddock.